Hey everybody, you're watching KTAL News Now. I'm your host Anthony Macklin, and today we have a very special guest as we are welcomed by Dr. Stanley Andrisse, who is an activist and endocrinologist, to talk about his new book, Breaking Chains, Building Futures, Pathways to Redemption, Education, and Excellence. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
And could you speak a little bit about your personal experience with incarceration and how it shaped your path?
Sure. Once again, it's a pleasure to be here with the audience. Um, I am a formerly incarcerated person who was sentenced to 10 years in prison as a prior and persistent career criminal. I have three felony convictions, two of which are Class A and B drug trafficking charges. I actually had a prosecutor pushing for 20 years to life in prison because she felt that this young black boy from the Ferguson, Missouri area had no hope for change. Fast forward some time, I did my time on that 10-year sentence, and I'm now Dr. Stanley Andrisse, endocrine scientist and assistant professor at Howard University College of Medicine. Also was at Johns Hopkins Medicine for some time here in Baltimore. Have a visiting affiliation with Georgetown Medicine. Took my talents across seas to a place called Imperial College London in the UK for some time. So clearly did not live up to those expectations of that prosecutor those many years ago. Um, but to dive a little bit deeper into that experience, growing up in the Ferguson area, I got involved in making a number of poor decisions at a very young age. I was arrested for the first time at 15. I moved into the criminal legal system and the juvenile system, continued to make poor decisions to that, leading up to me sitting in a courtroom in my early 20s, looking at 20 years to life in prison and having this prosecutor, you know, painting me as this dangerous threat to society that needed to be thrown away. I was fortunate to have this mentor step into my life that saw me using my talents differently. That tied with over the course of the first couple of years of my incarceration, my father went through a number of hospitalizations, surgeries, and amputations to the point where he ended up losing his battle with type 2 diabetes. And that led to me picking up my first scientific article on diabetes. And to any of your viewers that aren't familiar with scientific articles, every other word is something you've never heard of before, and there's no WebMD, Google, and definitely not Chat GPT when I was incarcerated. So it would literally take months and weeks to months to go through these scientific articles. But what it did was, although my body was physically locked in a prison cell, my mind was freely roaming around the human cell. And in that way, I was free. So, long before my body was physically free, I had freed my mind from this idea that the prosecutor had, prophesized that I was irreparable. With the help of this mentor, he started really encouraging me that I should continue my education. When I ended up getting a release date, um, he helped me put together a number of applications. I applied to six schools. Took me months and months to put these applications together, but almost immediately after pressing the submit button, just rejection after rejection after rejection. I was rejected from every place that I submitted to, except for St. Louis University, where this mentor was on the admissions committee at. So I got into St. Louis University, ended up completing my MBA and PhD in just 4 years at the top of my class and moving on to these other places. Um, and so with moving in that direction, coming from, where I had come from in terms of this place of hopelessness and despair to this place of, being at Johns Hopkins and Howard University. I wanted to, I slowly had started working with some people that I was incarcerated with. And really the seed for the organization that I ended up founding started while I was incarcerated. It was started as this idea of, building, using education as this transformative tool to help people put their lives back together. And it was kind of just a crazy idea. I remember walking around, I was at a level 4, which is, essentially there's the next level up is, where people that are never getting out of prison essentially. And so it was a maximum security prison, and walking around the track, not having an out date at this time, and telling my one of my good friends that I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna become a doctor. And I had gone through the transformation in my mind at that point, but he thought I was kind of crazy. Time goes on. I still hold on to this idea. I get out, this mentor helps me put it into action, and I get into the school as I was just mentioning. And then I started helping a few other people that I was incarcerated with get into school. And then eventually we got, about seven of us or so that we were incarcerated, that I was incarcerated with these other men, and we got them into school, and they were putting their lives back together. And we thought, like, maybe we have something here. This idea of mentorship, this idea of community, and then having education be the transformational vehicle that helps people get from A to B. And we said, this sounds like a playbook. Let's start a nonprofit. And so, we started the nonprofit about 8 years ago with this idea of, if you just have a mentor that believes in you and kind of sees your potential, and then you have a community of individuals that you can see yourself in and that are doing positive things, and education to be this vehicle of helping. And what we learned is that education has this healing aspect to it. It has this therapeutic aspect. And so we put that together. 8 years later, we've had over 2,000 people apply to the program, over 1,000 people start the program, over 750 folks complete the program, to where we have people doing, from the whole gamut of the educational pipeline. We help people get into, electricians, CDLs, forklifting. We also help people get into PhD programs at MIT in astrophysics. So we have nurses, we have MDs, we have people working on their law degree. Um, and really, it's on this basis of mentorship, community, and the healing power of, uh, putting value and worth back into a person's life.
And I know you talked about how you were applying to a bunch of different programs to no avail, and you created this support system essentially for other formerly incarcerated people. What obstacles do people face in terms of trying to reintegrate into society whenever, like if they don't have that sort of support system like you were talking about?
Yeah, I think, there's been people that have reported that there's over 44,000 collateral consequences to incarceration. And so, meaning that just there's 44,000 different things on the books of, like, that are barriers to folks. And I mean, one of the big things, of course, that was a barrier in my path, and one of the things that we work on in the organization is, having to check the box that you have a felony conviction. So a lot of data goes into, checking that box on job applications and in school applications. There's a lot of data that shows 66% of people immediately don't even just get put into the no pile. So we've done a lot of work to ban the box, to remove the question, to where people don't have to check that box at the beginning. We've asked to move the box to not be part of that initial process. And that box is not only on employment and school, it's on housing applications, it's on loan applications for your, getting a car, getting a house. So there are, you can't get into school, you can't get a job, you can't get a loan, you can't get a car. Um, and then, of course, I mean, there's the kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs that are challenges of just, when you can't get a car, can't get a loan, you don't have shelter, you don't have the ability to, get transportation to a job, even if you were to get a job. So now, there's struggles of just getting, your basic needs. Um, and, there is, of course, a lot of uh, like challenges of, like, mental health and access to mental health that, people experience. So that can lead to challenges with substance use, because they're really, self-medicating a mental health issue. Um, And yeah, I think it's just a concoction for without community, without support, um, it makes it very challenging to navigate and, you know, easy for someone to fall back into making poor decisions.
And you could talk a little bit about the education aspect of your personal transformation. I know you said you were reading several different like science articles and things like that. Why do you believe that it's crucial for others to sort of do the same?
Yeah, so in my experience, like those science articles I mentioned kind of helped me see myself differently. And I think it's just incarceration, of course, obviously is physically locks a person's body up. But I think what's even more impactful and what even stays locked up for longer, because 95% of people who are incarcerated, which I mean, just to drop a few statistics here, we incarcerate more people than any other country in the entire world, more than places like Russia, China, North Korea, places that are always in the news on treating their people poorly. We incarcerate way more people than they do. Um, and that's about 2.2 million people that we incarcerate. That's 10 times higher than all these other places I just mentioned. But actually, out of that 2.2 million, 95% of them are coming home. So the majority of people at some point in time are coming home. Um, and you know, for those that are coming home, um, we need to have, you know, they need to have like resources available, right? And a lot of times, even after someone comes home, without that community mentorship that I was mentioning, their mind is still incarcerated. So their body has left incarceration, but in many ways, their mind is still incarcerated. And a lot of times it's not having the access to communities like P2P. Prison to Pro is what we call the organization is from prison cells to PhD. We run a program called Prison to Professionals or Prison to Pro or P2P for short. But without a community like P2P and without mentorship, it's hard to get out of that psychological, emotional incarceration, even after a person's physical body is gone and has left incarceration. I mean, and there's just, there's the trauma of incarceration itself. There's a lot of healing that needs to take place from that trauma. I mean, there's, a lot of times physical healing and psychological and emotional healing. So a person, I reached this point of unlocking my mind through, reading these scientific articles, but I think, a person just needs to find it doesn't have to be that for everybody, right? I mean, there's been sometimes events that happen with the person's parents or their kids that help them reach that kind of epiphany moment. I mean, the scientific article is kind of the epiphany moment while I was incarcerated that I find it finally clicked. And, I realized that there's more to the world almost. Like as I was exploring the human cell, I realized that, the expansiveness of the world. And that happened at the same time this mentor was pouring into me and telling me how much potential I had. So I think the combination of like an epiphany moment and then having that community and a mentor there to tell you that you're more than this, worst moment of your life. This one poor decision or even multiple poor decisions in my case.
And you've obviously become an inspiration for thousands of people now, and you also highlight other inspiring people in your book. Is there any particular story or person that you took the most inspiration from or that resonated with you?
So yeah, so to step back and talk a little bit about the book, as you know, I appreciate you for mentioning that at the top of the conversation. Breaking Chains, Building Futures is actually book number two for me. Book number one was From Prison Cells to PhD. It's Never Too Late to Do Good. It shares the same title as the organization. And the subtitle of the book is a phrase that my father used to tell me. My family and I are Haitian immigrants, and we spoke Creole growing up. The phrase was actually "Il ne jamais pas trop tard pour faire bien," which means it's never too late to do good, but also there was this meaning of it's never too late to reach your full potential, and it's never too late to do the right thing. So, my father had this level of patience with me that I really didn't understand as a teenager, as I was making all these poor decisions. That what he was saying was that I see your potential, and that one day you will see your potential. And I think it's a powerful message to the criminal legal system. If we believed in that, we wouldn't be incarcerating people for 10, 20, 30, 40, one life sentence, two life sentences. Crazy that, we sentence people to multiple life sentences as if like if you were to die and be reincarnated and came back, we would lock your ass back up, right? It's crazy. But that's the reason we do that is because society doesn't believe in change. And this, what my father was telling me was that he believed that everyone had the ability to change. And that's kind of what we embody at P2P, that we believe with mentorship, community, and with this, delivering this idea that people have potential, they can grow. And so the book actually, my first book came from me sharing my story on Capitol Hill, and then it getting picked up, me sharing my story on Capitol Hill in reference to some of the policy work that we were doing, and it getting picked up by the Washington Post and NPR and PBS and a couple others, and a publisher came and I published that first book, which was the #1 new release in educator biographies on Amazon. And from that, I did a lot of interviews and things like this that I'm doing for this book. And from one of those interviews, another publisher reached out. And, in my interviews, I usually talk about the work. And so talk about the people that we're helping. And so this second publisher, Wiley, came and wanted me to tell the story of P2P and the people that we've helped. Um, and I said, that sounds great, but we have to rework the deal a little bit because I don't want to be telling other people's story. So that was a long introduction to say, I'll tell you a couple of amazing stories, but there's so many of them. And, sometimes I want people to be the authors of their own stories. That's what this book is all about. So Wiley and I reworked the deal. Out of those 750 people that I mentioned have gone through the program, we put out a call for applications, and then we selected 13 people to be the co-authors of the new book, Breaking Chains, Building Futures, where we believe that we're shifting the narrative, we're breaking that old narrative, we're breaking the chains of that old narrative, and we're building futures. I'm actually sitting right now in our transitional house. So I feel compelled to mention some of the stories of the some of the brothers that are here with me in the house. That yeah, and again, not to really share their story, but just to acknowledge their story. I mean, one of the gentlemen that's here in the room with me, was actually I guess both the gentlemen that were in the room with me did spent a lengthy amount of time incarcerated, over decades incarcerated, and have come to the house, and one of them is running the house, helping manage the house. Both of them are in this National Institutes of Health sponsored program where they are working towards their bachelor's degree in STEM, and they get scholarship dollars and a stipend to support them being full-time students towards STEM degrees. And again, to the idea of most people don't think that folks that come from places where we've come from are capable of pursuing, degrees in biomedical sciences and, working in this new field of AI. So that, they are some people that I would be remiss not to mention. Neither of them that are here with me are co-authors of the book. One of the amazing co-authors, William Freeman, was sentenced to life in prison without parole was never supposed to see the light of day. And through some of the work that he did on the inside tied to education in one of the educational programs, not our program, Goucher Prison Education Partnership, um, he caught the attention of a person that had some influence within the legal system, and that person advocated that his sentence be moved from without life without parole to a parolable life, and with some things that happened to make that change possible, he went before the parole board and was released. He connected with our program. We've helped him in the reentry process. He is now one of the leaders in the nation, leading the conversation around education justice and education policy. And he works for Education Trust, which is a large national nonprofit that shapes the landscape of education policy, not just for people impacted by the system. Another one of our individuals is a leader. She is a leader in the space of intimate partner violence and sexual violence against women. And, she's one of the leading advocates advocating for change in that arena. And that really was empowered by, her connection to us. She was actually connected with our program. We end up hiring a lot of the people that go through our program. So she began working with our program. She learned like the nonprofit mechanisms and then launched her own nonprofit and is now like a national leader in the space. So I mean, there's just countless stories. The way that we approached the book was actually to think about, some of the authors have experienced, uh, you know, uh, traumas as a child, from physical trauma to sexual abuse. Some people experience entanglement in substance use and alcohol, and that's what led them to their incarceration path. Some people, a large majority of folks experience poverty, but then there's some of the authors that didn't come from the place of the typical, poverty story, and involved in some white collar crime. So we actually have like a lot. We thought about the all the different ways that people get entangled in the criminal legal system, because the way that it is now, it's a trap almost for certain communities and people, regardless of socioeconomic status in many ways. And so we wanted to embody that in telling and having these folks tell their amazing stories of what they've overcome.
And when it comes to that legal system and creating more opportunities for people once they are released, like what changes would you like to see to the legal system to create those opportunities?
Yeah, I think at the moment we are really focused on access. So we want to find ways to increase access. So we, through our work, and what I mean by that, so through our work, we've helped, the hundreds of people, the numbers that I was mentioning. And so we help people get into schools, and then we learn that, we're helping them get degrees. And we do understand, we understood this from the very beginning, that what we're trying to do is provide mentorship, provide community, and have education be a vehicle for healing and helping deal with some of the like traumas of incarceration, because we learned that working towards a degree, working towards a certificate kind of reframes your mindset to say that I have self-worth, I have value. It makes you feel it brings that sense of purpose back to you and of self-value and self-worth. So we always knew that it really wasn't about the degree. It's really about bringing that self-worth back. And knowing that it really wasn't about the degree, we also knew going into it that, giving a person a degree, there's a lot of statistics that show that it will help them stay out of prison. But we also understood that there's a lot of challenge, even with the degree, in getting a job after that. And, even in my story, I didn't really quite share it in our conversation today. I talk a lot about it in my first book about even with those letters behind my name, I still had a lot of challenges getting employment. So we want to really work towards access. Like after we've helped people get these degrees and certifications, we're now trying to really spend some time working with employers and changing the employment landscape for people to really see like we have talent, we have letters behind our names now. Now you need to start hiring us. And so we really want to work towards policies and practices and, changing the narrative and conversation around access to, jobs and employment and not just entry level, like jobs that require us to do hard labor, like jobs where we owned the companies that are doing labor jobs maybe, or that we are, in upper management and, moving towards C-suite type of jobs. And because the talent is there. And so we really want to work towards that access piece. And there's partners that we're working with places like Harvard with Jobs for the Future. JFF is a big national organization that's working to create access to employment. Um, and so that's a big part of where we're looking at now.
And aside from changes to the legal system, how do you, in your opinion, do you think that people, because whenever people think of, a convicted felon or a formerly incarcerated person, they usually have this label or preconceived notion on them. How can you sort of change that mindset that the average person has and like create more like support for, people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the work, aside from this book, we put out, a video, a yearly video. We put out a film essentially where we tell the stories of the folks that have gone through our program. Um, and, we do a lot of work on social media to put up uplift testimonials of some of the great things that some of our scholars are doing. I mean, just using the word scholar, for instance, we stay away from using words like ex-con, felon, convict, prisoner, inmate, and we use the word scholar to help change the narrative. One of the stories that we recently put out, this person is not one of the people that are one of the authors in the book. But is an amazing scholar of ours. He is, I believe, pushing 65 or just older than 65. I think he just had his 65th birthday like a year or two ago. And last year, he got accepted into law school. When he came to us, he didn't have any type of college education. And so a lot of people said, you're too old to go back to get your associate's degree. He got that. You're too old to get your bachelor's degree. He got that. And, now, he's in law school. So I think changing the narrative, and how we try to do that is putting out these stories of just seeing people's humanity. And so, we do that through our videos, we do that through our testimonial, we're doing that through this book. I think once you read it, we hope to kind of touch the heartstring and see that, these are people. These are not, bad people. We try to stay away from that framework of thinking. It's people, we see people, all people, as the opportunity to do good. And, sometimes we make poor decisions, but that's doesn't say that we're bad people. So I think we're trying to humanize, um, people that have had this experience. And that's how we begin to change that framework.
And how can people who read the book directly support you guys or just contribute to that positive change?
Yes, that's a great question. I think we would love for you to follow us on our social media from Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, even at Prison to Pro is our handle. I would say to visit our website from prison cells to phd.org. And from following those, You will learn a little bit more about the work that we're doing. I mean, even if it's not our organization, I think just in general, if you're, the first step is trying to learn a little bit more about the community. And in the case of us, we have a number of volunteer opportunities where you can get some, hands-on experience, one-on-one experience with someone who's been previously incarcerated. And again, having that one-on-one experience, our volunteers that volunteer with us that are not formally incarcerated, they're there to help our scholars. But actually, they just time after time tell us, we get a lot of like college students that work with us as we recruit them to help our scholars with college. And a lot of them have never had family members that have been incarcerated. So they have all these preconceived notions. And then they meet our scholars and they're just like, I want to go out and like hang out with this person. They end up building these lasting relationships. And I mean, it ends up being more life-changing for our, non-impacted volunteers than it was, for the scholar. And we know that too. That's part of what we're working towards. We're working towards helping the scholar, but also like helping this person that didn't know about incarceration learn more and see the human side of it and see that, these are just people.
And where can our viewers go? Because I know the book is not out yet. I think it releases in September, right?
Yes. So you can find Breaking Chains Building Futures at your favorite bookstore, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, or your local independent bookstore. We'll have the title. You can pre-order it now. But yes, it releases September 17th. If you are to pre-order, it will be at your door on September 17th.
And is there anything that I didn't ask you today that you wanted to touch more on?
I think we covered a lot. I would just encourage you to check out our website, check out our social medias, pick up the first book. It's available right now. You can have it at your doorstep tomorrow. Um, and just really encourage you all to connect with this community of work to really see the other narrative that we're helping to promote.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you.
And if y'all haven't yet, be sure to visit us on ktalnews.com. You can catch us on KTAL News Now every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. But for now, I'm Anthony Mocklin, and thank you for joining us.